Well, happy Monday, beautiful Badgers. I want you to, grab your coffee if you drink tea in the morning, and I want you to settle in because we need to talk about something that's been messing with your head lately. And it's that feeling like you're trying to squeeze yourself back into a life that doesn't fit anymore. And, it's like wearing last decade's dreams and you're wondering why they're cutting off your circulation. And here's the thing, you cannot step into the same river twice. You might think that you can step into that river twice, the same river, and everything's going to be just as it was the last time, but it isn't. And there was a Greek philosopher named Herculitus, and he dropped this truth bomb about 2,500 years ago. And we're still out here unknowingly trying to prove him wrong and still trying to recreate that one perfect summer, still trying to chase the high of who we used to be, and we're still wondering why the old formulas aren't producing, you know, better results or even the same results, if you will. But here's what our ancient friend was really saying. The river's different because it's literally made of different water. And you're different because you're literally made of different cells. Your mindset, everything, your views, all of it are different. Science tells us that every 7 years, nearly every cell in our body has been replaced. So if you're trying to be who you were a decade ago, you're essentially asking a completely different person to play dress up in someone else's life. And we sit around and then we wonder why our life feels like shit. Let's break down the neuroscience of nostalgia, or translation, why our brain is lying to us. So I would like to get nerdy for a hot couple of minutes because, first of all, I love science, I love data, I love research, and I just feel it's important to understand the science that, makes the struggle make sense. So researchers at the University of Southampton found that nostalgia activates the same reward centers in your brain as cocaine. Yes, you heard that correctly. Your memories of the good old days are literally drugging you, drugging me. Again, this is not me like saying it's you and not me. I'm speaking from experience. But here's the kicker with that. Nostalgic memories are about as accurate as the friend who swears she only had 2 drinks last night, or whatever the case may be. And a study from Northwestern University showed that every time we recall a memory, we actually change it. We smooth the rough edges, we amp it up, the good parts, and then conveniently we forget that even in our golden years, we were stressed, confused, we were desperately, wanting to be popular, be with the, now for me, growing up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we didn't have the cell phones, but for you, it would be desperately checking your phones all of the time for validation. For us, it was literally, being in the group or, wanting to be part of something. And the past that we're trying to recreate, it never actually existed. You're changing or you're chasing a highlight reel that your brain edited with an Instagram filter called selective memory, right? So what's the identity crisis, behind this? And nobody really talks about is this is where, it gets really juicy and delicious and almost like you can sink your teeth into it. The real mind fuck isn't that life changes. It's that we're supposed to pretend that it doesn't. Society loves a consistent narrative. We're supposed to pick the lane. We hear that all the time. Build the personal brand. Here's my thing on personal brand. I am a personal brand because there's nobody like me, but yet we're supposed to be building, and it has its validity, and I get that. But the way it is on social media, it is so overconflated. It's crazy. It's like be the same recognizable person every damn time. Like you are not allowed to step out. You are not allowed to pick a different path. You are not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. But what happens when the career that defined you for 20 years suddenly feels like it's a costume? You've been wearing a mask and you've been in a play the entire time, or the relationships that you built your identity around have evolved or evaporated, right? What about the goals that used to light you up, but now they feel like someone else's homework? Really, it's drudgery and you don't look forward to it. And you don't even have the passion to dig in and set the micro goals and steps to even achieve those goals anymore. Or the person in the mirror who is unrecognizable. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'll tell you what happens is we stand at the edge of our own river and we're trying to figure out if we're allowed to be different than who we were yesterday, even who we were a few hours ago, right? And the spoiler alert with all of this is you are. And in fact, you already are different, whether you know that you are or not. So let's talk about the mathematics of change. Yes, really, mathematics of change. Believe me, not a big fan of math, but we're going to do some because it's good for me, it's good for my brain. So stay with me through this bit of really cool math, if you will, because it blew my mind, all right, when I was like looking into and researching this. But researchers who studied the complex systems found out that change doesn't happen gradually, right? It happens in sudden shifts called phase transition. So water doesn't slowly become ice at exactly 32 degrees Fahrenheit and boom, transformation, right? It's like water, you don't put it in the refrigerator and oh my God, we have ice. It doesn't work like that, right? And you know what else follows this pattern? Personal growth. You don't press like an easy button, or you don't press this and you don't press the personal growth button and woo, personal growth, right? You're not slowly becoming someone new. You are accumulating micro changes under the surface until one day there's phase transition and you wake up and you are fundamentally different. And that's why it can feel so jarring at times, right? Have you ever had those moments where you're like, it takes you by surprise? I mean, I know I have, right? And that's why our old life suddenly feels like a sweater that was shrunk in the wash and now it can only fit a Barbie doll. And the river didn't gradually become different. It was always becoming different every single moment. You just noticed. So, there's this why why are we fighting the current and why it makes us miserable? And I feel like we need to hear this. Things just can't be wrapped up in beautiful little glitter covered packages all the time with all of the bows and all of the confetti, right? Our resistance to change is more exhausting than the actual change itself. It's like you're trying to hold on to your breath forever, but eventually life's going to make you exhale, or what happens, right? So a longitudinal study from Harvard followed people for over 80 years. Yes, 8 decades of data. And you know what they found with that? The happiest people weren't the ones who achieved this perfect state and maintained it. They were the ones who adapted and they treated life like a dance instead of this death grip. But we're out here white knuckling our old identities like they're life rafts, right? When really all they are, they're anchors, and they're anchors that are supposed to help us move on. So what is the art of becoming? Again and again and again. So you can't step into the same river twice, right? Well, then what are we supposed to do? So here's where it gets fun. You get to practice the art of becoming, not once, not twice. There's no limit to this, but as a way of life. And this isn't woo woo, like just we're going to start this whole reinvention thing, right? This is about recognizing that evolution isn't optional. There's one thing that we know that is certain, and it's change, right? And it's just happening whether we are participating in it or not. And the question is, are you going to be the artist, or are you just going to be the canvas? So I want to break down exactly how to stop fighting the current and then start flowing, literally, like honestly, the badass river god and goddesses that we are. So hot badger tip one, strategy one: revisit old goals but with new eyes, new optics, new perspective. Pull out those old, if you have dusty vision boards, or you did a journal, or you did like 1 year plans, 5 year, whatever it is, right? Those goals that you've been dragging around like expired coupons that you just leave in your wallet or whatever it is, look at them with the eyes of who you are now. So what's going to happen is you're going to find that some of those goals, they're going to still resonate with you, right? So those are the ones that you want to keep. But the others, they're going to feel like you're reading someone else's diary. And that's not failure, that's growth. You're not obligated to want to do what a previous version of you wanted. So just release what no longer fits with the same confidence that you donate jeans from like 1987. Okay. Like, because honestly, it's like, see ya, mom jeans. Didn't like them when they were around the first time. Don't like them now either. So, strategy number two, hot badger tip number two is release nostalgia. Now, and I'm not saying that you have to erase your memories because believe me, and I'm sure I'm not seeing all my memories the way that they actually happened. But damn it, if some of those times were not so good and so fun, and growing up in the 70s and 80s was like just totally like amazing, I'm not throwing them out, but I'm also not what I like to call hometown heroing the shit. I'm not living in it as if it's actually my life now. I enjoy the memories, but I know where I'm at, right? Because if we stay there, that's not our friend. Nostalgia can be a seductive liar. And, it has the propensity to whisper things like, remember when everything was perfect? And look, everything was not perfect. We were just younger, and youth forgives a lot of imperfection. So instead of trying to recreate the past, try this: write a goodbye letter to your good old days if you want to, and thank them for what they taught you. And then, recognize that the only reason they were good is because you didn't know what was coming next, right? Just like right now, these are the good old days for your future you. So, hot badger tip number three, lean into the flow. And this can be an added new superpower in your superpower toolkit. So, adaptability is the new intelligence. And I know a lot of people, it's overused and things like that, but if you do not have flexibility to move through the constant changes of life, it's just you are going to feel like you are hitting a wall 24/7. And I'm not being dramatic. Research from MIT shows that cognitive flexibility, it's a fancy term for rolling with it, is a better predictor of success than IQ. So thinking, start small, right? Change your coffee order. If you always get the same chakalaka mocha loca taka tea for whatever chino it is, get a coffee. Like legit, get a coffee with a little milk. It change. Or here's something I do this. I will do this. I will write with my left hand, even though I'm right hand dominant, or I will use my left hand to do things because I am right hand dominant. Brush my teeth, things like that. Just little things, not like these big shattering, life altering changes, right? And it's wear the outfit that feels, not quite you anymore, and then see who you become in it, or practice being fluid in low stakes ways again, and watch your capacity for bigger changes expand. It doesn't, again, small, simple, stupid, right? So, hot badger tip number four, mark the transitions, make them sacred, right? So, ancient cultures, they had this shit figured out, right? They created rituals for every single transition. It was coming of age, changing seasons, entering new life phases, right? But we just expect ourselves to seamlessly slide from one version to another like we're updating software. So create your own rituals. Like, dude, and you go through stages of life, celebrate that fucking shit. This, and here's something, and I'm just going to say, we live in a culture where it's taking time out to celebrate small wins. A lot of times is frowned upon. Now, I'm not saying you live in it and then that's it, but god damn it. Like, dude, I am right now, I'm in like this best fucking stage midlife, and it is epic. I'm not going to just wash over that and act like, okay, well, here we are now. No. So create your own rituals. Maybe it's burn old journals. I've done this. Or write yourself a letter from your future you. I've done that. I've also written letters to my younger self or had my younger self write letters to me. It's a really fun thing to do, right? Or maybe it's having a Viking funeral for expired dreams, writing them down on a piece of paper and then tossing them into a fire and just eulogize that shit, right? Mark the transitions, making the transitions conscious instead of letting them sneak up on you and just being like, oh, well, this is just how it's supposed to go. Because no, it's not just how it's supposed to go. It goes the way that we want it to go, the way that we make it go, what we put into it, right? Life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. So there is a plot twist and it will hopefully change everything. So the beautiful mindfuck of Hercules' river, right? If you can't step into the same river twice. If you can't step into it twice, that means that every moment is literally unprecedented. And so for me, this always makes me think of whenever I go hiking, rucking, whatever you want to call it. And there are a lot of streams around here in the different, on the trails and things like that. And every time I go back to a certain trail where there's a stream, that's not the same stream. Even when I go into the trail and I cross over the stream and I come back out and I cross back out over the stream to get back out, that's not the same stream that I had crossed earlier in my hike, right? And you've never been this version of you before either. And this is the exact, configuration of selves, experience, and possibilities that has never existed for you. So what does that mean? You can't actually fuck it up by doing it wrong because there's no precedent yet, right? There's no manual for being today's version of you. Now, what you do the day prior could actually help set the standard, but it's still up to you what happens today. And you're making it up as you go. So is everyone else, right? So the permission slip that you need to flow, here's what I'm getting my hair out of my mic here. Hopefully, I'm waiting for the rest of my new mic system. My mics are going bad. 5 years of podcasting with the bad boys held up for me. So I'm upgrading to big girl stuff here, but all the pieces aren't here yet. Anyway, here's what I want you to do this week. Your glorious, ever-changing river of a human, right? So I want you to stop apologizing for your evolution because you're going to be apologizing for the rest of your life 24/7. Stop prefacing your growth with, I know this is different from what I used to say, but, and stop explaining why you don't want what you wanted 5 years ago or justifying why your priorities shifted. And stop acting like consistency is a virtue when really it's just fear in a really fancy three-piece suit, if you will. And you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to outgrow relationships. You are allowed to pivot, evolve, transform, and become unrecognizable to people who need you to stay small so they can feel big. In fact, you are supposed to do that, right? So the data on doing you differently. So a Stanford study on identity found that people who embrace identity flexibility, also known as allowing themselves to evolve, report 73% higher life satisfaction than those who are clinging on for dear life to fixed self concepts. And they're also more resilient, more creative, and ironically, they have stronger relationships. Why is this? Well, they're relating from a space of authenticity, not from some, crusty, outdated role that they've been playing since 1997, right? And you know what else the research shows? The midlife crisis isn't actually a crisis at all. It is a scheduled, quote unquote, software update. Our brains literally rewire for greater meaning making capacity around 45 to 55, right? So what we've been brainwashed to believe and trained to believe that like our life is falling apart and we go and we want to do all of these different things. what's happening is we're actually falling into place. We are shifting into another stage. It doesn't mean it's a crisis. You're not losing your mind. You are gaining more depth perception. We need to put that midlife crisis bullshit to bed right now. So the river does have a secret message. And here's what Hercules didn't explicitly say, but I feel like he definitely implied it. The river doesn't mourn the water that's moved on. It doesn't try to flow backward. It doesn't build dams to keep things the same. It just keeps flowing constantly, new, constantly fresh, constantly itself, because it's constantly changing. And maybe, just maybe, that's the whole damn point of it anyway. Maybe we're not supposed to be monuments to our past selves, or, you know, maybe we're supposed to be rivers, dynamic and powerful and constantly carving new epic paths when the old ones are, they no longer serve us. Maybe consistency is overrated and evolution is undervalued. Maybe the bravest thing that we can do is to admit that we're not who we were yesterday, and we are not yet who will be tomorrow. So I have a little badger ritual, river ritual thing here, if you will. This week, going into this week today, later this week, and take this into every day hereafter, whatever it is, I want you to try something. I want you, if you can, go to an actual stream, a river. If you live by an ocean, if you don't, just hell, just go to a sink in your house, okay, and watch the water go down. Now, don't get crazy and like waste water, like totally, but watch it for a few seconds to a minute, right? And notice how it never fights itself, and it's never apologizing for flowing. It's not like in there like look, it's like, oh my god, I'm flowing, I'm so sorry, I'm going to circle around the bowl now, or I'm going to circle through these. It doesn't do that. It just does. It just is. And it never tries to convince the rocks that it should go backwards. So then I want you to ask yourself, now this is where you're going to get your pen and paper. If you're in the car, please don't do that. Wait till you get home. Write it down. What am I trying to flow backward to? Where is my current naturally taking me? And what rocks am I wasting energy trying to convince? So I want you to write down what comes up. Then let that shit flow downstream where it belongs. So the truth that's going to set you free, you can't step into the same river twice because you're not the same person and it's not the same river. This isn't about limitation. It's liberation. It means every moment is a chance to choose differently. Every day is an opportunity to flow in a new direction. And every breath is a permission slip to be exactly who you're becoming. So stop trying to step into yesterday's river with today's feet, and stop measuring today's you by yesterday's metrics, and stop acting like evolution is a betrayal when really staying the same is the ultimate self abandonment. The river knows flow is life, stagnation is death, and you are born to flow. So this week, instead of fighting the current, follow it, flow with it. And instead of damming your growth, direct it. Instead of mourning who you were, celebrate who you're becoming, because the river of you is going somewhere that is beautiful and gorgeous and potentially unexpected. And the only the only tragedy would be missing the journey because you're too busy looking upstream. So this week, remember your assignment, and yes, I'm giving you homework, take it into next week whenever you need it. Change one thing that you've been doing the same way forever. It could be your morning routine. It could be your email signature. It could be, how the way that you answer how you are, right? Make it different, but make sure that it's you. Feel the river shift, and then send me an email, or DM me at all my handles. It's Gritty Glitter Badger, and my email is grittyglitterbadger@gmail.com. I would love to collect evidence of all of the beautiful fluidity that is going on. So Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go get some of the goals that fit 2019 about as well as a pair of jeans that it's like trying to keep two bagels in a toaster. If that makes sense to you, does that make sense to you? Like trying to stuff two bagels inside it. Anyway, I'm out of here, Badger. So I will see you in the flow. And remember, don't just go through life, grow through life.